Hey guys, this is Zach with Farm Table West, and welcome to our 2023 May farm tour. And as you can see behind me, everything is starting to explode and grow like crazy. We've got truckloads of tomatoes that are almost ready to start being harvested. We've got cucumbers here that are going crazy, and summer squash right next to them. So that's all pretty exciting for us here in Wyoming because it is very cold here and it's hard to get this stuff early. So I actually just ate my first ripe cherry tomato about 20 minutes ago, and we're going to start picking those very soon. So pretty exciting time here at the farm. The whole farm is almost planted, and we've got a couple updates on our electroculture, and we're going to start doing some Jadam Korean natural farming techniques here too that I'm going to show you. So let's show you the farm. So we've got right here, we've got a lot of cucumbers that we are just going to start picking today. Never grown them before in this way, so it's pretty exciting. They're just about ready to start getting picked. And I sort of screwed up when I planted these. I planted them in March, which is really early for here, and I wasn't quite used to heating with the propane heater that I have, and I think I burned a lot of the tomatoes or the cucumbers in this bed, or early on in this bed, and stunted them. So the ones at the end seem to be doing better. However, it also might be because of this, the electroculture. This is the first try I've done with the electroculture, and this antenna is 3 feet tall, and as you can see, the cucumbers within a 3-foot radius of that are way bigger than all the ones down the row on average. But I'm still kind of not getting too excited about this yet because I know I screwed up with the heating of this bed and definitely stunted a whole bunch of them. But I don't know, still exciting. There's still, but I'll show you some more antennas I have that aren't really doing much yet. So still, the jury's still out on that. But check out these zucchini, truckloads of these. These have done really well because we planted these in March as well, and they are starting to pump. We've been harvesting them for a good couple weeks, which is really early for us here in Wyoming. And the tomatoes are just absolutely exploding now. These are all slicers, lots of green ones, not quite ripe yet, but they will be ripe probably within 2 to 3 weeks, I'm guessing. Here's our geothermal tunnel, or our geothermal outputs. And then, yeah, check this out. These are our first ripe tomatoes right there, which is amazing. It is May 26th. Here's my watch to prove it. May 26th in zone 4B, Wyoming. Pretty cool. We did heat this tunnel with a lot of propane, so that is part of the reason why they're so early. But the geothermal definitely helped because we haven't actually had to heat in here for like a month, and it's still pretty cold in May. So the geothermal kept it above 55 in here for the past basically month, which is awesome. But yeah, as you can see, the tomatoes are doing pretty well despite all the issues I had when I was planting them. This guy looks like he's almost blushing, but I'm probably just getting overexcited. But yeah, he looks like he has a little bit of color. But they were all way too big of plants. I learned that you gotta, I never grown them from seed before actually until this year, so I planted them a little bit too early and they got big in the pots, probably stunted them a little bit. Plus I wasn't quite used to heating in here yet, so there's a whole bunch of issues actually. So I'm pretty happy with the result, given the fact that I probably stunted them a few times. But then I got to show you this other thing I'm doing. Oh yeah, and then here's a couple more electroculture antennas, and these guys, you see that one is right there. That's about 2 foot tall, and it's not really changing the plants at all, in my opinion. So I don't know if I'm doing it wrong or whatever, but that one's not really making a difference yet, unfortunately, which makes me sad because I definitely want it to work. But I'm sure there's a lot more to it than just simply putting copper wire in and whatnot. So and we got celery and basil going on. This is almost ready to start harvesting too. But the coolest thing, the thing that I'm really excited about right now is this Jadam stuff. So that right there is a bunch of life. That is just pure life in there. So that is basically all these are all bubbles from microorganisms that have been feeding on some boiled potatoes that I put in there in a sock. And actually here, I'll just pull it out. So yeah, I got these 2 socks, and one of them has leaf mold soil, one of them has boiled potatoes, and then I put some dissolved Himalayan sea salt in there for minerals. And that's all in this book, Jadam Organic Farming. Really cool technique of building life and microorganisms and stuff. And this is only 3 days old and it's already doing that, and it's supposed to be ready to use probably today. So what you do is you pour that on your soil, and it adds a ton of life to it. But you have to do it right when the bubbles are at their peak. So I think I'm going to probably water today. I'm going to goof around with it. And then this is the fertilizer version, where you're breaking down all sorts of weeds and plant residue that you have lying around with that leaf mold soil. And yeah, there's all sorts of bubbles in there, and that's starting to break down. And in about 3-4 weeks, that is ready to use as well. And that's the the leaf mold soil. So this is basically just that soil you find at the bottom of a tree, and it's got tons of life in it. So it's just broken down leaves and stuff with all the microorganisms that are area. And it's supposed to make supposed to make your soil really explode with life and growth and all sorts of good stuff. So very excited about that. I'm going to probably keep doing that all year and try and get it in our drip irrigation somehow. But it's really cheap is the bottom line. It's free. You know, you never have to pay for this stuff. It's all local. I just whipped that up in about 10-15 minutes just with stuff we had lying around. So very cheap, easy way to fertilize. And that's a big deal when you're growing stuff like tomatoes, because tomatoes are just such heavy feeders. I gotta close this because you're supposed to make sure they're kind of closed, the tubs or the cans, because of evaporation and stuff. I got it so crammed in here that it's kind of hard to do. There we go. So yeah, that's really exciting. Yeah, and if you want to buy that book, it is Jadam Organic Farming. It's on Amazon. Very cool method that was developed. What's his name? Young-Sang Cho. There's a lot of other videos on YouTube about this stuff that are much more in depth on how to do it, but I'm just experimenting with it on a vegetable farm, trying to figure out how to get it distributed easily and stuff. So, and because yeah, I don't want to be lugging around big buckets of compost all the time, because that's a lot of work. And that's part of the reason why I'm really interested in this stuff, because compost is expensive around here because we're in a pretty rural area, and not a lot of people making compost. So if I could start kind of mitigating how much I need for feeding plants, that would be awesome. And I think adding more life is always good. So now behind me is our second batch of tomatoes, which is all planted basically a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and there's about 240 plants in here. I can't remember, I think in the last video I hadn't planted anything in here yet, or any tomatoes. So there's a lot of tomatoes in here. They're doing really well. And there's gonna be, so this is gonna be a complete jungle of tomatoes. And then we just planted peppers, which was right underneath that little low tunnel there yesterday, and then second batch of cucumbers in that bigger low tunnel over there, and that just keeps it warm at night because it's still getting in the 40s at night here. and those crops need a lot of warmth to get going. But let me, and then here's a little bit more of our electroculture experiment. So this guy's only maybe less than 2 feet tall, and this is what's making me sad. I don't see any difference in growth. In fact, it's almost less. They almost look smaller, the carrots, in this little spot than they do throughout the bed. But yeah, I'm not really seeing any difference here, so that's why I'm not totally sold on the electroculture yet, as much as I want to be. But I'm sure there's a lot more to it. I'm just kind of goofing around here. I haven't put a whole lot of effort into this yet, but I'm going to try some other things in the field this summer with onions. Hopefully, probably build a bigger antenna that's hopefully more like 30 feet tall or way taller, I don't know. But this is our cherry tomato bed. There's a whole bunch of cherries there and heirlooms and slicers. We just started stringing them up yesterday because they're starting to flop over. And let's see here. I'll show you the second batch of cucumbers. If you live in a cold climate, this row cover stuff is absolutely a game changer. You can use it for so many different things. You use it for winter growing, for early spring growing. It's just an amazing, cheap way to extend your season. I was kind of turned off by it for a while because it's a pain to work with. It blows in the wind really bad, but if you can figure out the wind with enough rocks and stuff, it can be an amazing cheap tool. Because if I was going to heat this greenhouse, it would probably cost me, even for like 2 to 3 weeks, it would probably cost like $1,000 to $1,200. And this keeps it 5 degrees warmer in here at night underneath here for these cucumbers without any cost. It's awesome. So basically it's holding in the humidity and keeping it warmer for stuff like cucumbers, but it's so useful for other things too. I got all my early lettuce and beets and stuff in here probably a week or two early just because of this. And then this is our peppers. There's a whole bunch in there. And we're doing the same thing with the peppers just because they need the most heat of anything, but they seem to be doing great. They were planted yesterday. And then tomatoes, we did the same thing with tomatoes a couple weeks ago, but they're pretty well established now. And our nights are about 50 degrees now, so I'm just kind of chancing it. That's probably a little on the colder side for tomatoes, but they're growing really well, so I'm just gonna roll with it. And they look farther along than they did last year at this time, so I think we're doing better, which is good. And I'm gonna try, if you have a high tunnel in your property and you do live in a cold climate like I do, I think every night will make a huge difference because our nighttime temperatures are so low here, even in the summertime. I'm gonna have to pay attention closer this year, but I'm guessing they're not much above 50 most of the summer. So getting that few degrees of warmth every night will help your tomatoes and stuff ripen way quicker. Because I could already tell it's a bigger difference. Last year, the reason I'm saying that is last year I didn't close the doors in here, probably starting right about now at night, just because I didn't want to, and I think it's definitely worth it. So keeping the doors closed at night, maybe close them at like 6 p.m. or something, and then the sun kind of warms it up for a little bit and then holds that heat for a little bit longer. Because these things don't really hold much heat, but the humidity does. So if there's humidity in here, all that water vapor will keep holding on to the warmth for a little bit longer, and even that little bit I think makes a big difference. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm really interested in ways to get things to ripen without having to pay for heat, because paying for heat is expensive. So if this works, I'll probably get an extra week or two of tomatoes than I would if I planted them outside or something. So that's a big deal for our season, because we just have such a short season. You know, most people don't even plant their tomatoes in the ground until June around here, so it's kind of crazy. Short season here, because our average first frost is September 21st, so we don't have a long season for tomatoes, but it can be really good if you get them early, or get them, any little bits of those season extension techniques help a lot. So now we are in the field, and the field is starting to get pretty exciting. It's almost all planted. Pretty much most of what you see was planted a few days ago. So yeah, I think behind me we got broccoli, cabbage, no, two beds of broccolini. So all of our broccolini is all planted. Lettuce, lots and lots of lettuce, arugula, radishes. We got our onions in. Let me just. So we got a whole truckload of onions. We grew these from seed, and shallots. So the cool thing about the shallots that I definitely am going to do again, we did them in plant plug trays, and we sowed like 2 to 3 seeds per plug, and because shallots are a lot smaller than onions, and I've seen other farmers do that with the paper pot system, which we will be getting here eventually, where you just pull the paper plugs, and this will just be a carpet of shallots. Well, right now it'll also be a carpet of weeds. I still got a lot of cultivating to do, but the manure I used this year was really, because it's been sitting around for a couple years and weeds just grow on it, so we have a lot of weeds to deal with there, but that's no big deal. I've seen worse, but yeah, the onions are, this is actually really, let me show you this. I think this is 220 feet, or no, 120 feet of onions and shallots. And then we have another bed I just planted. I had some extras, so I planted another 50-foot bed over here. So this is gonna be a truckload of onions and shallots, which is really cool. Oh, and this is our kale, everybody's favorite. And then I got a couple more beds to flip here and prep for the season. These are all dandelions that just seeded last fall, because I was building that other tunnel. I was pretty distracted. I didn't have time to really stay on top of the weeds as much as I'd like to, but that's all right. They're not that bad, honestly. I've already had, the weeds were about just as bad on every other bed here, and it took me 15 minutes or so per bed to clear them. It's not that bad. And plus, these dandelions are supposed to be really good for that liquid fertilizer I showed you earlier, because each taproot goes down like, I don't know, a foot or so, and it grabs all sorts of good minerals that will break down in that liquid compost and be really good for plants. Yeah, here's our second batch of green onions. And then this is awesome. This is spinach, planted last year in like October or something, and they are just, they've done so well. I'm blown away. This was an accident. I really didn't plan this at all. They survived all winter, and they started growing about a month ago, and I've already cut this once. So it basically just grew another crop. We had negative 35 temps this winter, and they survived. But I'm guessing, normally I've done that a bunch of times and I've not seen it ever work this well, but I think we had, this whole field was covered in snow all winter, which is kind of unusual for around here. We don't usually get that much snow here, but the snow, I think, kept it alive really well, and it's exploding, so that's good to know. I don't know if I'll ever, like, plan for that, but I'll probably always plant some spinach just to see if it works. And then here's our next batch. This is the fresh spinach, so it's kind of interesting. You can see the difference in leaves. The fresh leaves are kind of more circular. That's kind of what you see in the store. Almost always, I think the spinach is fresh, first cut. This is your second cut leaf. That's always a little more pointy. I have no idea why that is. Usually the second cut tastes a little better, but as you can see, these guys are starting to go to seed, which is about normal. So I gotta cut this pretty soon and flip it to whatever I'm planting next, which I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I'm just blown away that works so well. That's cool. So yeah, we're probably gonna try some more electroculture in the onions, because bigger onions is just better. Oh wow, my rows are a little not straight, not so straight there, but Oh, and this is our second batch of carrots. Lots of weeds there too, unfortunately, but that's not a big deal. We'll deal with it. And then this is cabbage. I'm trying out growing some smaller 1-pound cabbages in this bed. We'll see how that works. There's 3 different kinds. I don't remember the variety off the top of my head. They're all, and pretty much all of our seeds we get from Johnny's. That's going to be interesting. So we're doing you always got to try a few new things. It's a lot greener now. Everything's really growing. We had our last frost like 3 weeks ago. It's been an amazingly warm spring here, which is unusual. But yeah, the growing season's officially underway, and every month here on out it's going to be a lot greener, a lot more stuff coming out, and we'll keep you updated on the electroculture and the Jadam stuff as well. So thanks so much, and stay tuned for the next one.